But those who know the inner workings of the tech world say that won't save teens.
Because their business model is putting kids into these kinds of loops of engagement. And that's what I'm really worried about, is that there isn't some quick fix to this thing. It's the intrinsic nature of the product.
These two young women say, simply put, Instagram endangered their very lives as teenagers.
We shouldn't have to end up in hospital beds, or we shouldn't have to be fed by the nasogastric tube, or our parents have to say goodbye to us or hand over their parental rights, because your platform is encouraging us to starve ourselves.
Very disturbing. Coming up, the man you just saw in Sarah's piece, Tristan Harris, who was featured in the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, and also testified before Congress about the dangers of big tech, joins us next.
The natural function of these platforms is to reward conspiracy theories, outrage, what we call the race to the bottom of the brainstem. It's the reason why all of you at home have crazier and crazier constituents who believe crazier and crazier things, and you have to respond to them.
Across Africa, businesses are working together like never before. All new on CNN, Connecting Africa.
Join me and Lenny Jokas as we crisscross the continent to show you how new connections are revolutionizing commerce in Africa. This month, we're uncovering new measures to boosting intra-Africa trade.
40% of all the containers you see behind, either they go to Africa or they come from Africa.
Only on CNN, in association with Afreximbank.
This is the 100 Club, our look at companies that are 100 years old or older. Levi's jeans have weathered gold rushes and depressions. They've been part of movements to promote peace and tear down walls. They've been in movies, on album covers, and worn by everyone from Marilyn Monroe to Steve Jobs.
I think part of the love and romance of Levi's really begins with their origins. They began as workmen's pants. Come on in.
Tracy Panek is the archivist for Levi Strauss & Company.
I'm gonna go up here to XX. So here we have the oldest pair of blue jeans in the world. We call them XX. That's what they were referred to before we gave them the lot number 501. This is a very young picture of Levi. He arrived in America in the 1840s.
Strauss decided to expand his family's dry goods business from New York to the West Coast, and in 1853 formed the Levi Strauss & Company.
This is the patent that was granted to Jacob Davis and Levi Strauss & Company.
And in 1873, the blue jean was born.
We've all heard the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, fruits of all varieties come with nutritional benefits. Apples are rich in antioxidants and fiber. If you're grabbing one as a snack, don't discard the skin because that contains much of the fiber. As for oranges, they offer more than just vitamin C. They're a good source of potassium and also fiber. And a glass of orange juice can quench your thirst. Just make sure yours has no added sugars. Bananas are a source of potassium and fiber too, and also vitamin B6. Grapes of all colors are chock full of antioxidants and other nutrients. And love your strawberry smoothies? Strawberries are a good source of vitamin C, potassium, and another essential nutrient called manganese. It's a little known mineral that your body needs to stay healthy.
Before the break, we shared the stories of two young women who experienced firsthand the dark side of Instagram. My next guest is an expert in the dangers of social media. He has testified before Congress on the issue, and he was also featured in the very disturbing Netflix docudrama, The Social Dilemma.
We built these things, and we have a responsibility to change it. The intention could be, how do we make the world better? If technology creates mass chaos, loneliness, more polarization, more election hacking, more inability to focus on the real issues, we're toast.
This is checkmate on humanity.
And Tristan Harris, the co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology, joins me now. Tristan, in reference to what we learned about Instagram and the toxic effect on teenagers, you actually believe Facebook, which owns Instagram, people, not all parents understand this,
right,
is actually worse than big tobacco. We've heard that comparison thrown around in the last several days. Let's talk about that. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, big tobacco is pretty bad, but this is so much worse because children or teenagers, they have to use this. I mean, for example, you and I, we probably use text messaging as our primary mean to communicate, I'm guessing, right?
Yes.
Okay, if you're a teenager, a lot of parents don't realize that Instagram might be your primary way of sending a message to someone. So, and actually in Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower's testimony, she says that one of the things that Facebook knows is that parents don't know how to give good advice to their children because they don't actually understand the dynamics. Oftentimes they'll tell their kids, just don't use it, just turn it off, or just delete that app. But that would be like me telling you, Jim, delete the text messages app on your phone. You're not going to do that. And so that's what's so much worse. It's not tobacco. It's a system of sort of behavior modification. I think Jaron Lanier from The Social Dilemma, the guy with dreadlocks, calls them behavior modification empires. They are systems of AI pointed at children's brains, trying to figure out, you know, with $1 trillion of compute power, when you scroll your finger with your, you know, how do I get you to stay as long as possible? And for teenage girls, if you look at one food tip or dieting tip, it found there's this whole category of videos that are basically the eating disorder and anorexia videos. It doesn't know why that works on kids, but it works, and that's what they show you.
And it keeps those kids who are looking at those types of websites sticking around longer. They're spending more time on their phone looking at all of these things because the algorithm, the technology has figured out this is what you want to look at. So they're just going to flood the zone with all of that stuff.
That's right.
Let me read you what Mark Zuckerberg said in response to the whistleblower. We put this up on screen. He says, the argument that we deliberately push content that makes people angry for profit is deeply illogical. We make money from ads, and advertisers consistently tell us they don't want their ad next to harmful or angry content. What do you make of that? And Tristan, you actually argue that Facebook isn't just harmful, it's the entire business model that is incompatible with democracy. What do you make of that? What Zuckerberg said, and if you can expand on his comments.
Sure. So, I mean, what he said is ridiculous. One thing that's really important about Frances Haugen's testimony, people putting attention on her. This isn't about her. This is tens of thousands of pages of Facebook's own research showing that they know that it causes mental health problems and eating disorders in kids. They know it's worse than TikTok and Snapchat. And then on the political side, that Facebook knows that it made political parties more divisive. I'll give you a couple clear examples. In Poland and in Spain, they interviewed political parties. And the political party says, hey, Facebook, we know you changed your algorithm. And Facebook says, oh, everybody has a conspiracy theory about how we change our system. What's yours? They said, no, we know you changed your algorithm because we're a political party in Poland. We used to be able to post a story about an agriculture policy, say, hey, vote for us because this is what we're going to do. And then when you change your system, we don't get any traffic for that anymore. The only time we get attention and clicks and eyeballs is if we say negative things about our opposing political parties. And we don't actually want to do that, but you changed your algorithm. So what that shows is that we don't have the sort of invisible hand of the political marketplace that's just choosing, we're choosing our way through. We have the digital hand of Mark Zuckerberg that has incentivized basically divisiveness and opposition and hatred and certainty over the kind of calm things that make our democracy work. And that's what makes it incompatible with democracy.
And so it's unclear. I mean, I don't assume that you know everything that goes on behind closed doors, but I have to assume that there are top Facebook executives who have gone to Mark Zuckerberg and have said, these things are happening. This is detrimental to society. Many of them did. Is he just standing in the way of this? Is it just Zuckerberg alone who is standing in the way of this?
He has, people don't know this, he has something like 55% of ownership of the voting shares. And so that's one of the reasons why the governance model is broken. You can't have one person with this much of the ownership and governance power over a company that influences what 3 billion people think, feel, and do every day. Now, here's why. You asked a question, which is when the Facebook researchers say, Mark, if your own researchers are telling you this is dividing political parties and causing chaos, why wouldn't you change it? And he actually said, it's in the Wall Street Journal article, people can look it up. He said, not if it impacts the engagement numbers. And one of the reasons for that, Jim, is that he set up a whole company where all of the employees, they have to actually increase those engagement numbers. That's how they get their bonuses. So if he said, we're not going to do what's good for engagement, suddenly that entire pyramid of all those employees that are working for that one number going up, they're all going to leave because they're not going to get those numbers going up. Those numbers are going to start going down.
There's an incentive structure.
There's an incentive structure. And that's why we say the business model is the problem. The business model of engagement at all costs, growth at all costs, means that the things that people assert that are kind of the crazier sounding things, that's what goes viral. And virality is not safe for our country.
That term virality, it just sounds so cold and clinical, but it is how these kids get hooked. Let me ask you, though, let's look at the cover of Time magazine. Delete Facebook is what is being asked of people there in that prompt over the face of Mark Zuckerberg. Why do you think, just to push back a little bit, and I suppose maybe the Facebook people would say this, so forgive me for saying this.
Yeah, go ahead.
But they would say, oh, over the years, parents in the media and people in government have worried about kids being corrupted by the music that they're watching, violent video games.
Another moral panic.
In that this is the olds, you and me, just not getting what young kids like and what they want to do.
So let me steelman that. So people say...
By the way, that is not how I feel, but I do think it is what they would say.
Of course. So let's be really clear. Baked into human nature is we care about what other people think of us. Baked into human nature is we compare ourselves to others. We compare our looks to others, especially teenage girls in developmental periods of their life. This is baked into human nature. But it's another thing when you rope children into an environment where basically your job as a designer is to create as much social pressure on that person as possible, because that's what causes them to come back. Why did they invent the follower count? I think you were telling me, people have their children and their children want as many followers as possible. Why do kids, is it just an intrinsic part of human nature? Or did they invent the follower count model so that there's a reason to go back because you say, oh, I got 20 new followers, I should come back to the app. Their job is to invent new reasons to keep you coming back. And we've never had $1 trillion of AI. So Facebook is $1 trillion company, which is crazy. And they've got an AI pointed at your brain to calculate the next thing that'll get you to stay there longer. That was not true of a magazine that you're doing this with. They didn't rope you into social obligations and relationships with infinite strangers who put pressure on you and bully you, so much so that on Monday morning in a classroom, the teacher has to spend 3 hours. We talk to parents and teachers at the Center for Humane Technology, and teachers will tell us they have to spend the first 2 to 3 hours in the morning clearing up the drama that took place over the weekend because social media creates that drama.
That is a huge part of kids' lives these days. And their whole night can get ruined based on what somebody said to them on Instagram, the fact that maybe somebody posted something, a picture of them and their friends, and this friend wasn't invited. I mean, it's just the way it crushes the humanity of young kids and teenagers these days. It's so awful, and it's just the thing that scares me the most as a parent. But I have to ask you about the political dynamics of this. Trump obviously wants to get back on social media. He's been fighting to get back on Facebook and Twitter. He was kicked off of those things because he incited an insurrection. How much damage would that do, in your view, knowing what you know, if he were allowed back on these social media platforms?
You know, I don't really think about whether one person or another, if they're on it or if they're not. I think what I'm more concerned with is the systemic nature of the platform. I think you could subtract Trump from the equation. Forget that. If we're just talking about how does it, imagine he didn't even exist, and we're just talking about how the mechanisms of the system work. Take vaccines. If you're a person, and this is true, by the way, for Twitter, for Facebook, the other ones, if you are a person who believes in vaccines, you click on some pro-vaccine articles, it says, oh, you must like that. I'm going to send you more videos of how the vaccine is safe, how everything's wonderful, and here's video after video of unvaccinated people dying. But if you're a non-vaccination kind of person or anti-coercion person, what you see in your video feed is here's why the vaccine's not safe. You click on that, then it shows you video after video of vaccinated people who had breakthrough infections. And so you become, both sides become exponentially more convinced that they're right, with exponentially decreasing empathy for what the other side has seen.
Yeah.
And notice that that's not part of whether one person's on Twitter or not, or Facebook. It's just how it works.
Yeah. Tristan Harris, you gave us so much to think about. And if these social media companies could just help people get vaccinated, I think you're onto something right there. It would just be so great. And if they have the technology, if they have the know-how to get us hooked on these things, they damn well know how to get us, to the information to get us vaccinated and protect ourselves and so on. Tristan Harris, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Yeah, we appreciate it. You're looking at live pictures right now from the island of La Palma, Spain, as more buildings are engulfed by rivers of lava. We're going to take you there in just a moment. Details.
This is my safe haven, my home. More than 1,000 islands scattered in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Conservation is my life. By working together, we can protect our ocean home into the future. The ocean gives us life. I know I will always be there. I hope you will too. Welcome to the Maldives.
I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta. This is CNN.
All new Inside Africa. Go inside the inventive minds, evolving places, and creative trends of the Africa you need to know now. Nigeria's visual artists think big picture with a distinctive approach.
It's addressing the issue of mental illness and depression, things that people rarely talk about in this part of the world.
Inside Africa, only on CNN, in association with Zenith Bank.
We share this place, we all belong. We have to restore this planet's soul. Teach it something more than what we know. Give it water, give it sun, room to grow. I can see a better tomorrow. I can see a better tomorrow.
Dubai is ready to push the boundaries and showcase the world's latest innovations.
It's an extraordinary playground to invent, experiment.
But Expo 2020 aims to go far beyond dazzling its visitors.
It's a place where the sustainability is beyond imagination.
How will it drive critical change and meet tomorrow's challenges? The Road to Expo, Sunday on CNN.
Take a look at these pictures coming out of Spain. Red-hot lava spewing from a volcano on the island of La Palma. The volcano, which started erupting in September, has destroyed roughly 1,000 buildings. At least 6,000 residents were forced to flee their homes on the island last month, and this new lava flow is within the same area. We'll bring you the latest on that when it comes in. Why are some stories omitted from history? An all-new season of This Is Life with Lisa Lang tries to find out.
By 1982, 1 in 5 Detroit residents were out of a job.
It's few and far between. Jobs are hard to come by. How about you? You hiring?
The only thing I can say is move somewhere else.
Suddenly, after a lifetime of well-paying jobs where they could afford a house, 2 cars, a recreational vehicle, a summer cottage, suddenly it was wiped out.
The only answer is charity.
People became destitute. The frustration turned into anger. People want to know, why is this happening to me? Who can I blame? In the beginning, the workers blamed the companies. Factories blamed the workers. The politicians blamed each other. And in the end, they kind of all reached a consensus. Let's blame Japan.
An all-new season of This Is Life with Lisa Lang premieres tomorrow night at 10 right here on CNN. Who is the woman behind The Princess? The all-new CNN original series. Diana seeks to find out.
I was always different. I had always this thing inside me that I was going somewhere different.
She was going to marry her dashing prince, like all the stories she'd read.
She was iconic. She was box office.
I'm going to dance with the princess tonight.
She'd like me to.
Pre-Diana, there was zilch interest in the royal family.
I don't think anybody has grown up in public like Diana has.
Diana provided a very public model for defiance and truthfulness.
Isn't it normal to feel angry and want to change a situation? I was able to recognize an inner determination to survive.
The new CNN original series, Diana, premieres tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
I'm Blake Estick in Tokyo, and this is CNN.
All new African Voices Changemakers. Create opportunities. Impact communities. Transform lives. Athletes who made history in Tokyo inspire their communities back home.
What I've done as a national hero should help my colleague to become like me.
African Voices Changemakers, only on CNN in association with Glow.
conscious leaders who are trying to find higher ground for people to come together. America is being torn apart by different sets of values, and we're not looking for win-win-win solutions. We're just looking to win and have others lose. The way we think about business today, the metaphors that we use are fundamentally only partially correct. We use war metaphors. We have Darwinian survival of the fittest metaphors. We have sports metaphors with somebody winning and somebody else losing. And those metaphors don't serve us well any longer because they're all hyper-competitive. And while competition is part of business, to be sure, it's also about creating value for other people, value for customers, value for your employees, value for your suppliers, value for your investors. We need different metaphors. We need to think about business differently.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
A 5-star performance by England's footballers in Andorra. City's dismal season continues despite playing their part in a thrilling Manchester derby. And why being fastest in qualifying wasn't enough to put Lewis Hamilton on pole. Hello, welcome to CNN World Sport. I'm Alex Thomas in London. England's footballers have put on a 5-star display, beating international minnows Andorra. This one from Bukayo Saka, putting England 2-0 up at half-time. Touched by Saka. It was notable that Manchester City's Phil Foden set up both, pulling the strings from midfield. Former Chelsea striker Tammy Abraham's great form for Roma this season was rewarded with a starting place, and he paid back coach Gareth Southgate by scoring. James Ward-Prowse also got on the score sheet before a late goal. Jack Grealish making the final score 5-0. Not surprising, as this was the 156th ranked team in the world versus the third best. And for the first time in an England men's game, there was an all-female refereeing team, Katerina Monzul, in charge on the pitch, while her assistants were fellow Ukrainians Alina Streletska and Svetlana Grushko. VAR official was Stephanie Frappart. England's the runners-up at the European Championships early this year. The only unbeaten team in Group I of World Cup qualifying with 6 wins and 1 draw. They're on 19 points, 4 ahead of Albania. They still need a couple of wins from their final 3 qualifiers to be assured of a place at Qatar 2022. Now on to the club game, and they were runners-up in last season's Women's Super League, but Manchester City still only have 1 win in this campaign after drawing 2-2 in an eventful local derby against Manchester United. It's been a disappointing start to the season for City, and it got even worse for them when Georgia Stanway was sent off for a dangerous tackle on Leah Galton. Yet with only 10 players, City took the lead minutes later. Jamaica's Khadija Shaw with the opening goal. This game bursting into life late in the second half with 3 goals in just 7 minutes. Lucy Staniforth's clever little backheel flick. And then Alicia Russo's low finish, putting United 2-1 up. They there was one final twist provided by substitute Ellen White to equalise the City 2-all, and the points were shared. Manchester City stay down in 9th place in the table, with United moving up to 3rd, just a couple of points off the leaders. Arsenal, Tottenham and Chelsea are all in action on Sunday. Let's get some analysis now with football expert Rebecca Smith, former New Zealand captain and founder and CEO of Crux Sports. Bex, great to have you back on World Sport. 4 goals and a red card. As a neutral, that was just simply great entertainment.
It was awesome. It was another awesome Manchester derby. It seriously never disappoints. Last year was my favorite match. Also 2-2 ended after Man United came back after 2-0, and this game was no different. I mean, the red card, the back and forth goals, a little flick, as you mentioned, from Staniforth. It was a really great game to watch.
What did you make of the red card? Because that really changed the balance, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a clear red. I mean, I liked the tenacity and the passion in the game, but it was a clear danger to the other player, Leah Galton, by Georgia Stanway. And you know, you can't assume what players are thinking right now, but Georgia Stanway is not, you know, right back is not her first choice of position. So you do wonder if there's a little bit of frustration or nerves going into that game. And certainly there was pressure on those players and the coach, being 9th place, as you already mentioned, being knocked out of the Champions League with some serious losses already. You know, 5-0 to Arsenal was the biggest one, and 9th place is not a typical position you'd see Manchester City women in. So yeah, it was a little bit shocking at that point in the game.
Would the result have been different if it had stayed 11 against 11?
I was listening to Gareth Taylor's interview after the match, and he felt that they would have actually won. Man City would have won if they had 11, but I'm not so sure. I mean, I think there were a couple of incorrect offside calls, one of which saw United's Alicia Russell wide open in front of the goal. The second had Leah Dalton pretty much 1v1 to goal, both for Man United. And if anything, I think the momentum was arguably towards United until the red card, which then all of a sudden shifted the momentum towards City. You know, they really picked up the pace. They then got their first goal. Mary Earps from the United goalkeeper had to make some really good saves, and there were other great chances in the game. So I actually think the red card was a really interesting twist to the game, but not as we would have expected it.
Yeah, a real roller coaster match. Listen, what about City generally? It's still very early days in the season, but of course they missed out on qualifying for the Champions League. They've now got just 1 win from their opening 5 WSL games. It's got to be worrying for such an ambitious club.
Very worrying, extremely worrying. It's been a horrific start to their season, to be brutally honest. They've been hampered with huge injuries. You have, you know, Lucy Bronze, the current world's best player, globally, sitting on the bench with injury, but you had up to 10 injuries by match day 2. And for me, it really begs the question, you know, what teams are doing now to protect their investments into players in terms of medical care. You know, are the budgets for doctors and physios and recovery and even prevention, injury prevention, are they too small, you know, with that many injuries going into it? But yeah, they're in a really tricky place, and all the pressure is on them right now. 9th place again, like I said, you're 3 from the bottom. It's not a good place to be in, and they'll be quite desperate now, you know, having seen another red card go into that. I think psychologically this was almost a win for them, so you might be able to see them turn the corner, but certainly they're going to have to claw their way back now, game by game.
Bex, regular World Sport viewers will know all about your background, not just as a player, but what you've done since your retirement. You know, you've been heavily involved with women's football development, including working with FIFA, the global governing body. So you're a really important person to ask about what you've made of the sexual misconduct allegations that we saw hit America's NWSL last week.
Yeah, you know, Alex, unfortunately, it's not surprising. And that's a pretty strong statement. You know, it's a topic that I saw, unfortunately, way too often while I was at FIFA, and generally, globally, it was met with way too much apathy. You know, while I was at FIFA during my time and even after the Afghanistan story, some of those players and what happened at the FA and in that culture is, you know, came out, and I had the chance to be able to speak to some of those players, and it's atrocious. And what's been really amazing to see is that there's been a dedicated group of sports and human rights activists working tirelessly behind the scenes to bring justice to those perpetrators for years, but also now we're seeing more and more stories coming out, like in Haiti, in Australia, even just last week, and in the NWSL obviously is one of the latest ones. But you know, they're the ones that are pushing governing bodies to do more to safeguard girls and boys. This is not just a specific girls topic, against sexual coercion, harassment, and abuse. And unfortunately, it's rife in the game, and it needs to be addressed seriously. I don't think there's anything more important than the health and safety of the main characters in sport, which is the athletes.
And parents of young children with aspirations of having a career in football are going to be really worried, just as they have been when we've seen other stories break in the past. What would you say to them? Is it still a sport that down the line will get safer and safer?
I mean, I hope it's a world that down the line gets safer and safer. I think sports is a reflection of the world that we live in. I think what's been incredibly inspiring on the one hand and incredibly tiring on the other is seeing the players and how they've responded and how they've, you know, been very active in their solidarity for players. But when can we stop relying on players, the main characters, to be the ones pushing the governing bodies, to be the ones pushing the clubs, those that are supposed to be safeguarding and protecting players, to be doing more? So yes, I think that football should be a safe space. I think in most cases it is, but again, I don't think that the world is a safe space right now globally. I think that we need to do more to protect young kids and children in vulnerable situations, and there are plenty of incredible people doing just that. The Center for Sports and Human Rights is one of them. They had a conference even this last week and on those really, really important topics. So there are very many people working towards it, but it has to be a #1 priority right now. It has to be.
And in echoes of the NWSL video you saw during that interview with Rebecca, we see here in the FA Women's Championship, the division below the Super League here in England, both the Liverpool and Sheffield United teams linking arms and standing in solidarity with those NWSL players who have been protesting against the lack of protection from football authorities against sexual harassment and misconduct. The revelations recently showing it goes back years and years. Lewis Hamilton was fastest in qualifying for F1's Turkish Grand Prix, but it will be a different Mercedes car starting from the front of the grid.
As Valtteri Bottas takes the checkered flag.
As a young man, I had one thing on my mind: to win. But then they stole my gold medal with corrupt judging. I'm still fighting for others to make sure they get treated with fairness. I know AIBA will clean everything up. Together, we can make sure that others get a fair fight.
I now give the floor to Clarissa Ward, CNN international correspondent.
Thank you so much. I've been a war correspondent for more than 10 years in every terrible conflict that you can think of, but I have never seen anything on the scale like this. This is happening right here, right now.
Life is dangerous. There are snipers all around. Is that what they want?
This is something you have to do.
This is one of the most unique environments on Earth. How many hours have you been on the boat? It's a humanitarian crisis growing by the day.
You've got to do justice to the story.
How has your life been affected?
I won't say you ever really make peace with it, but you can bear witness.
There are very little signs of normal human life.
You can't not feel some level of personal impact. Clarissa Ward, CNN, London.
Across Africa, businesses are working together like never before. All new on CNN, Connecting Africa.
Join me and Lenny Jokos as we crisscross the continent to show you how new connections are revolutionizing commerce in Africa. This month, we're uncovering new measures to boosting intra-Africa trade.
40% of all the containers you see behind, either they go to Africa or they come from Africa.
Only on CNN, in association with Afreximbank.
Hello, welcome back to World Sport on CNN. Lewis Hamilton was fastest in qualifying for Sunday's F1 Turkish Grand Prix, but it will be his Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas starting the race from pole position. Hamilton will begin from 11th on the grid. It was a 10-place engine penalty. Hamilton penalised on Friday after exceeding the limit for new engine parts, but the upside was the world champion's improved pace. He was fastest in every phase of qualifying and is sure to try to storm as far up the field as he can on Sunday. He looks to protect that narrow 2-point lead over Max Verstappen in the drivers' standings. The Red Bull star will be alongside Bottas on the front row.
It's a good session. It's been a good 2 days so far in terms of overall performance. Obviously quickest yesterday, and then I didn't bother doing too many laps in D3. But then obviously to be ahead in all the qualifying sessions, so really strong. I think the car's been feeling great this weekend also, so yeah, excited for the challenge tomorrow.
Now, we knew Tyson Fury v Deontay Wilder Part 3 was going to be a heavyweight encounter. We just didn't know how heavy. After a draw and a win for Fury, the pair doing battle for a third time on Saturday night with the WBC belt on the line in Las Vegas. And at Friday's weigh-in, Fury tipped the scales at 277 pounds or 125 kilograms, while Wilder was 238 pounds or 107 kilos. For both men, that's the heaviest they've ever been for a fight.
What does it mean for you to be this heavy on Saturday night?
It means total obliteration of Adosa! Total annihilation! That's what it means to me. 277 pounds. I'm going to put him in the Royal Infirmary after this fight. Don't worry about that.
Calmness is the key to the storm. You know, I know that when I'm not calm, my mind is cloudy. So when your mind is cloudy, it allows you to make bad decisions. But when you're calm, you can weather the storm. When you're calm, you're able to see certain things and you're able to decide, make great decisions. And I'm looking to be calm this fight so I can make the great decision, so I can show the people what I'm all about. We have rejuvenated myself, we reinvented myself. Redemption is upon us, and I can't wait to show the world what I'm all about. I'm reintroducing myself to the world as Deontay Wilder.
Fury is odds on favourite with the bookmakers to win again, and he's also received a message of support from football icon Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
I want to wish you a big luck, even if you don't need it. You're on that level. Keep making history, and people admire you. You're an inspiration for everybody, so keep doing what you're doing. Keep being yourself. That is most important. And do me a favor, just go out there and dance in the ring and do what you have to do. Take the belt home and keep going, keep striving, keep pushing. I wish you all the best. Take care, and I'll be watching. So make me enjoy.
There's been a huge shock in rugby union, with Canada getting eliminated in qualifying for the 2023 World Cup in France. They were beaten by 33 points to 24 in the second leg of their playoff against Chile. Canada had only won the first leg by a single point, so overall it's the South American nation that goes through to the next stage. It's the first time that a Rugby World Cup will go ahead without Canada, who even made the quarterfinals back in 1991. And we've got the latest action from the Major League Baseball playoffs to show you. Some big hitting on display, which is why one ball had to even be fished out of the river.
Climate change affects people all over the world. But what if all food packaging came from nature and didn't impact the climate? At Tetra Pak, we're on the journey towards delivering the world's most sustainable food package. Fully renewable, fully recyclable, carbon neutral. Go nature, go carton. Learn more at gonature.tetrapak.com.
Fashion is my life. I can't think of anything else. My name is Michael Finkel. I'm a fashion designer based in Dubai. I'm in Crystal House, the main distributor of Swarovski crystals. I'm very meticulous when it comes to choosing the right crystals. I love the sparkle, I love the bling. Whenever I see someone wearing my dress, I'm so happy, and it gives me satisfaction and a validation. For me, that's one of the greatest fulfillments as a designer.
Real news that shapes our world.
Kenny Anderson, Monday through Friday on CNN. Dubai is ready to push the boundaries and showcase the world's